record this every week. I try to record at least one. I try to record them both, and then I'll upload at least one of the two files. So you can always rewatch these if you'd like to. And of course, if there's questions that you have for me, always rewatch the video, because it's probably that I've gone through it and said something about it in the Zoom video. But hey, maybe I didn't. So, or maybe I said something that you just didn't quite understand. So always feel free to email me. I really am happy that you guys have emailed me and kept in touch. And it really does, I feel like we've got a really serious group here. Not that you don't like having fun, but that you're serious about getting down to business and getting your work done. So I really do appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and take a look at our syllabus today. Let's see, I think I may already close that out. Okay, so we're going to take a look at our syllabus. Just remember, every week, if you wonder what is going on, you can always take a quick look at the syllabus, and that should jog your memory. Now, last week we did, for this class, we had the let's see here. I'll bring up the chat box just in case anybody has any chat they need any questions. Last week we did the very first reading guide, and I had a lot of questions on it, and that's okay. That's really a good thing. And I want you to remember that these reading guides, especially for this first couple of readings, I'm not going to get super nitpicky. I am going to go through with you guys kind of what I'm looking for and give you an idea of kind of an idea of what to how to look at these maybe a little bit closer. But I wanted you to at least just give it a shot. And the reason why we do these reading guides, and if you take a look, one thing I do want you to be aware of, actually I'm going to have to find this again. Let's see here. Okay, so one of the things that is kind of confusing, and I just want to kind of dispel it a little bit. It says complete critical reading activity number 1. That's your reading guide. So whenever we did this in person, there were a lot more things that I would have you do, but I'm making it a little bit easier since we're doing this virtually and I can't physically kind of go through the ropes with you. But that's what that is. So if you see critical reading activity, that's the reading guide. So all you needed to do for last week, and it looks like everybody had I mean, as far as yes, and if you haven't handed it in, go ahead, hand it in. Can we still turn the first one? Definitely, always, 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 even if you forget or have a hard time, always hand it in. Worst case scenario, you get a few points deducted, but I'm not going to deduct any points today. So you just get that thing in there, and I'm just happy you're getting it in right now. As we go forward and we get in the swing of things, I think you'll have an easier time getting stuff handed in on time. And this week, of course, everything's that's due on Friday. The only thing I want you to do on Friday, we have reading number 2. So in order to find reading number 2, we go to the Comp 1 Blackboard page. We just talked about it in Comp 1, but I'll just show you real quick. So we go to the Comp 1 Blackboard page, the homework and assignments. Again, we go to the Essay 1 project materials folder, and then you go down, and it's going to be this learning to play chess narrative. And with this one, there's no author, and it's just really short as well. And if you take a look, it's about the same length. It does the same thing. It's another narrative that I want you to do your reading guide over. Now, let's talk a little bit about this reading guide, because I did get some questions. And yeah, so you want to, Catherine asked the question, is there a reading guide due? It will be due Friday. The first reading guide was due last Friday. If you didn't get it, that, go ahead and hand it in now. But the second reading guide is due this Friday. So, and again, I'll just show you again where we hand those in, content and assignments, you click there, and then you go to, first of all, if you didn't hand the first one in, go to week 1, and then workbook, we call it workbook. I'll retitle it, reading guide. Because it used to be in a workbook. Normally it's in a workbook, it's a printed workbook. There, perfect, reading guide, awesome. Let's see, and so you're going to hand that in for week 1 if you haven't already done so. For week 2, same thing. So week 2, all right, I have it listed as a reading guide for week 2. So hand in your reading guide for week 2 at that location. Now let's just review a little bit about this reading guide, because I did get some questions. So again, the reading guide file is right here. And well, I'm going to take a look at that real quick. I got a few questions about it. You know, I know you guys were kind of struggling with it at first. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to fill this out? And I don't want you to really stress a ton about getting exactly the right answer. The goal is to help you read these readings more critically. Let's see, real quick, I'll take a look at the question. So the second one is only over 1 of 2 readings for 101. Yeah, so the first one was the subway paradigm shift. This one's going to be the learning to play chess narrative. So they're 2 different ones. So you're going to, if there's an author, you'll put the author. Most of the time there will be. On the second one, there won't be. But let's just take a look. Let's just pretend we were doing the subway paradigm shift. So I'm going to just grab that one real quick so we've all looked at that one already. You've all read it. It's pretty short. They're not always going to be this short, but this one's pretty short. So the subway paradigm shift. So if we take a look at that, and we take a look at the reading guide that we're trying to fill out for it. Okay, so the author's name. Well, okay, it's Stephen R. Covey. Easy one, right? We've got an easy one there. And then who is the author? You can Google him. We talked a little bit about this, but the question that I got the most was over the outline portion. What am I supposed to do on this outline portion? Well, okay, so I know, and however you did it, it's fine. As long as you got it done and you did your best, I'm going to give you your points. But let me just kind of give you some further instruction as far as how to look at these. If you take a look at where it says introduction and thesis statement, well, you got to understand the thesis statement is always going to be in the introduction. That's generally where it's at. And the introduction is always going to be the first paragraph of the essay. So if we take a look at this, it says paradigm shifts move us away from seeing the world to another. And those shifts create powerful change. Our paradigms, correct or incorrect, are the sources of our attitudes and behaviors, and ultimately our relationships with others. Well, in the first couple of sentences, we have him set up the basic idea, a paradigm shift, right? He defines a paradigm shift. Or he talks about how sometimes the way we see things change. So in the introduction portion, you can just write a few words about how, you know, the author writes a little bit about how we occasionally have things happen that make us look at the world in a different way. Something as simple as that. Then the thesis statement. Okay, so the thesis statement is the next thing they're asking for. Now, in many cases, you can just copy and paste the thesis statement. In this one, you could. The thesis statement is, remember, it's the argument. It's the truth statement. It's the thing that the author is proving or demonstrating in the essay. And so basically, if you take a look, it says our paradigms, okay, our paradigms, correct or incorrect, are the sources of our attitudes and behaviors, and ultimately our relationships with others. You could literally just copy and paste that in the thesis statement section, and that would be fine. Quick question from Catherine. Can I fill this out in a new document? If you want to, you can. As long as you're completing all the same stuff and it's all there, I'm okay with that. So, okay, then we get past the thesis statement into the body, okay? And we have body A, B, C, and D. Now, if you take a look at the reading, right? Let's see here. We've got multiple paragraphs, but we have like we may not have an easy way of doing the A, B, C, and D. And in future essays, they're going to get super long. So we have to think about different sections. What are the main ideas? If you take a look, these 2 paragraphs pretty much are the setting, right? they talk about, and you could literally just on the section, the body A, you could say something to the effect of like, okay, in the first two paragraphs, the author tells the reader that the story started on a Sunday morning in a subway. It was quiet, and then a bunch of rowdy kids came into the subway. Okay, we're putting it in our own words, and really, you wouldn't even have to do the little a, little b, little c if you wanted to. Those are there for the little details that you may want to remind yourself of later, and they'll become more helpful whenever we get into the essays that are really, really long and they make a lot of points. This is a really short essay. Okay, then the next thing. The man sat down next to me, closed his eyes, apparently oblivious to the situation. The children were yelling back and forth, throwing things, even grabbing people's papers. It was very disturbing, and yet the man was sitting next to me and he did nothing. Okay, all you have to do on B, you go to B, is say, you could just put it in your own words. What happened in that part? Next, the narrator noticed that the man didn't do anything about the rowdy kids, even though the kids were causing a big disturbance in the subway. Okay, cool. The next part, it was difficult not to feel irritated. He talks about this. Okay, well, the next part on C, we might say, eventually the narrator asked the man to do something about his kids. And that is whenever he found out that their mother had died. Oh, actually, no, wait a minute. That's not what happened in that paragraph. Okay, so in this paragraph, that's not what happened. So we have to think, okay, what actually happened in that paragraph? So basically, we could say, eventually the narrator became so frustrated that he asked the man to do something about his children. Okay, great. Next paragraph, paragraph D. And this is where, okay, then the man told him that the kids were probably acting up because their mother just died, and he was pretty shaken up about it too. And that's why he wasn't doing anything about the kids. Okay, and then conclusion. Now, of course, this is a story. I mean, he really taught a lesson there. Man, what a story, man. This is, whoa. He thought he was just being a bad father, and then suddenly he finds this out, right? But, this is why it's a good story. Then you get to the conclusion. Now, you got to remember, the conclusion is usually going to bring something up that connects with the introduction. And this, he does. Notice this. He says, can you imagine what I felt in that moment? My paradigm shifted. Now, he doesn't bring up paradigm in this essay at all, other than the introduction and the conclusion, right? This is the lesson I'm going to teach you about paradigms. And then in the conclusion, he reminded us, oh, this is how that paradigm shifted. He's reminding us that this is the point that he was going to prove to us. So in the conclusion, you might say, the narrator established that his paradigm actually did shift, and that his irritation instantly vanished, and the way he looked at things changed completely. Okay, and again, it doesn't have to be anything intricate. It just put it in your own words, what's happening in that section. Now, some people, they were like copying and pasting. That's not the end of the world, but what you're really trying to do is understand it. And if you're putting it in your own words, you're going to do a better job of understanding it. And then in the rest of it, you do your best to answer the questions as best you can. Now, whenever it came down to these key words, I hope you all, if you didn't already know what paradigm meant, I hope you looked it up. Make sure to put at least 3 key words in there and their definitions. You don't have to put what page they're on this because, well, it's all one page. So you don't have to worry about that. But, what's the word and what's the definition? Just do your best, okay? As we go further in the semester, I'm going to guide you a little bit deeper, and we'll go a little bit further along. And I think you're going to really be glad you're doing these. Now, the biggest reason for that is we're going to have to summarize both of those readings, okay? So in your own words, you're going to need to tell me what the reading was all about. And the cool thing is, if you're doing this reverse outline, you're getting in the habit of doing that. You've already done it, to be honest. You can come back to this outline and say, okay, well, let's see, these are the main things, these are the main ideas that the author brought up. Cool. I've already taken notes on those things. They're already pretty obvious. I'll just put those in my summary. Now, you'll probably have to change the way you word things so that it flows a little bit better, but you've got everything you need to make a good summary for that summary assignment. So, okay, so we're going to do another one of these, and this is going to be for Friday. So this is going to be the reading number 2, learning to play chess narrative, and you're going to need to fill this out and hand it in by midnight on Friday. And you do that, you're going to get all your points. Now, in addition to that, there's one other thing. If you notice, only one other thing. It says complete journal number 1. Okay, so what's journal number 1? Let me show you. If you go over to here to, let's see, we got to go to the English 079 page. You're going to see where it says reflective journals. You click there, and I give you some instructions there. But essentially, a reflective journal, you're going to do one of these every week. Okay, if you take a look at the syllabus, you're going to notice journal number 2, journal number 3. Every week there's going to be one, and these are worth about 10 points apiece. And essentially, all I want you to do is just answer the questions, or just write maybe a paragraph. Okay, and you click on here. So reflective journal number 1. You don't even have to do it in a Word document. You can just come in here and click where it says write submission, and you can just type it in this little box there. Now, if you prefer, you can always do it on a Word document or a PDF, and you can click here where it says browse computer, and you can upload your document there as well. It doesn't matter, whichever one you want to do. But for this one, it's pretty much just kind of a check-in. How did your first 2 weeks of the semester go? Okay, that kind of a thing. So just read the prompt, answer it. I'm talking maybe 4 or 5 sentences. As long as it looks like you actually gave it some thought, you're going to get your credit. I just want you to be thinking, and this is an easy way to get more points for your class. So literally, this and your reading guide, those are the only 2 things you need to hand in this Friday by midnight. Okay? Now, I am going to go through a few things real quick, but just so you know, those are the only 2 things you need to hand in by midnight to English 079. Real quick, I am going to remind you about the campus engagement project. Remember, this semester, over the course of the entire semester, you need to complete 2 campus engagement project activities. And it can be, first of all, I give you a lot of options here. The first one on here is August 27th. It's a part-time job fair, and it's virtual. So you don't even have to go anywhere. You can just hop on the internet and just attend. And in order to register for it, you go down to the Blazer career link down here, venue.edu/Blazer career link. And you go to it, and all you have to do, like it says here, write 1 paragraph to summarize the event. So like 6 or 8 sentences just saying what happened there, what it was about. And then write a second paragraph, just what was your reaction? It was fun, it wasn't fun, I got a job, I could have gotten a job, but I didn't really need a job, or I was looking for a job, but all the jobs there were on shifts that I can't work. Or just give me 6 to 8 sentences with your response. How did you think? What did you think about it? How did you feel about it? You only have to do 2 in a semester, okay? They're each worth 50 points, so it's a pretty nice chunk of your grade. Now, also, in addition to these, you can also, instead of doing these, if you want to do tutoring, when you go to a tutor, it doesn't matter the topic, so it can be science or math or English or any of those. You can do that for one of these as well. So you can write 1 paragraph to summarize, what you did during the tutoring session, in a second paragraph to describe how you felt about that tutoring session. Will you go back? Did help, that kind of thing. And that will work as well. But I just always want to remind you guys that this is something I'm not going to, there's no specific due date other than you have to make sure to be done with them by the end of the semester. But just keep them in mind because the semester will be over before you know it. I know it feels like it's fresh and new, and it is. But before you know it, it's going to be Thanksgiving, and you're going to be not wanting to do much more homework. You're going to be bogged down with other classes, tons of homework coming at you. So sometimes it's good just to knock this out before it gets too crazy. Okay. And lastly, just so you know where we're going to go with all of this, with those 2 readings, next week, we're going to work on summaries. So by the end of next week, you will have written both of your summaries, and I'm going to guide you through that in the class on Monday. We're going to talk a lot about how to do summaries, and we're going to do a peer review on our summaries. And the reason why we're doing peer review for these summaries is so that you can hand in your summaries to Comp 1 confident, knowing that someone else has looked at your summary and has given you some feedback, okay? So we're going to be doing our summaries. If you want to go ahead and get started summarizing those 2 readings, you can go ahead and do that. And then what we're going to do is we'll have a peer review so that other people can look at your summaries. I'll take a quick look at your summaries as well, give you some feedback, give you some pointers, and that way you can make revisions before you hand it into Comp 1 for a grade. All right. Does anybody have any questions? That was a pretty quick class, but really, as of now, you should know these are the things. There's 3 things, or I guess there's 2 things to hand in to this class by Friday, and you have a good idea. You have a good idea of where we're going with this. Any questions? Looks like there are no questions. I will be putting reminders up for you as I get time. But of course, if you have questions later on, remember to rewatch this Zoom video. Also, I'm going to put up, I may put this class's Zoom video up. I may put the other class's Zoom video up. I talk about the same things in both classes. So it doesn't matter if it was ours or it was the other one. I cover the same materials. If for some reason I didn't cover it in the Zoom class, or you still have a question, you can always email me and I'll do my best to help you. Always remember to give me your name, to give me the class that you're asking a question about, and give me as much information so that I can give you the best possible answer to your question. Guys, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and we'll log off. And I just want to, I'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. All right. Thanks so much. Have a good week.